The promise of electric vehicles, EVs, I mean, it's huge, right? They're seen as this cornerstone for any country that's serious about climate goals and leading on tech.
Absolutely, a massive pillar.
But here's the twist for the UK. Despite all the big talk of the early hype, it seems like it's actually lagging. Lagging in really crucial areas of infrastructure, making the things here, the cost, and maybe the most damaging, just clear policy.
It is a striking disconnect, isn't it? Especially given how bold the UK sounded at the start. You'd really expect them to be further along.
Yeah.
These current struggles, they have, well, quite a few layers.
And that's exactly what this deep dive is for you, our listener. Think of it as your shortcut.
Yeah, a way to grasp why the UK, which looked like an early leader, seems to be, well, struggling to keep the momentum going on EVs.
We're going to peel back those layers using the sources you've shared, pull out the really important bits, maybe some surprising facts.
And give enough context so you feel properly informed.
Exactly. Now, the UK's journey here, it's been quite the roller coaster.
Oh, definitely. It's a story of big ambition, then these really sharp turns, and then, yeah, a major step back.
Let's trace that quickly. So the government kicked things off pretty boldly in 2017. They announced a ban on new petrol and diesel car sales by 2040.
Which felt like a strong signal back then, quite forward-thinking for the time.
It did. But then, just 3 years later, 2020, Boris Johnson's Green Industrial Revolution.
Right, and suddenly that target jumps forward dramatically
Well,
to 2030.
10 years earlier, with hybrids allowed until 2035. Okay, but still, 2030 was the big news.
That looked like real commitment, a sign the UK wanted to lead the charge.
But then came the whiplash. 2023, Rishi Sunak pushes it back again.
Back to 2035.
Yeah. The reason given was giving households and industries more time.
So what's the actual impact of chopping and changing like that? It's not just about slowing down.
Yeah.
It fundamentally damages trust, doesn't it? Think about the manufacturers. They'd already started making huge investment plans based on 2030.
Suddenly, the goalposts move.
Exactly. And that kind of instability, that lack of predictability, it's poison for big industrial investments. It basically tells global companies, maybe look elsewhere for stable policy.
While other places, like in the EU, largely just kept going.
Kept their foot down, yeah, but pushing ahead.
It's a stark contrast. Okay, so let's dig into where the UK actually is today, because there is progress, but it feels slow.
Slower than needed, for sure.
Take government help, for instance. The UK used to offer a grant, £2,500 for a new EV.
Yeah, it was a decent incentive, but they scrapped it.
Scrapped it in 2022. The justification was, oh, the market's mature now.
Which, raises a big question. What message does that send, especially when you look at Germany?
Right, what are they doing?
Well, as of 2025, Germany's still offering up to €4,500 for EV purchases.
So the UK stopping its main grant kind of suggests a confidence the market maybe hasn't fully earned yet. It makes it harder for, average people.
Definitely. And then there's a charging network, absolutely vital.
The numbers sound okay at first glance. Around 60,000 public charge points across the UK by mid-2025.
Yeah, but the devil's in the detail, or rather the distribution, and the user experience.
Yeah.
Most of those chargers, packed into London and the southeast, huge swaths of the country, especially rural areas, have next to nothing.
Right, so charger anxiety is real if you live outside the M25.
Totally. And even where they exist, the experience can be, well, a nightmare. It's patchy, unreliable.
Different apps for everything.
Exactly. Multiple apps, different plug types sometimes, and chargers just being out of order far too often. Imagine relying on that.
Especially if you live in a flat or you rent. No driveway for home charging.
You're completely dependent on that public network working smoothly. It's a huge disadvantage.
So it's not just the number of chargers. The sheer frustration of using them must be a massive barrier, almost as much as the price.
I think so. It's a psychological hurdle. Now, what about making the batteries, the gigafactories?
Ah, yes, the crucial battery production. Where does the UK stand?
It's a bit of a weak point, frankly. There's the big Nissan battery plant in Sunderland, that's one, and a few others are supposedly in development.
But compared to others?
Well, compared to Germany, they've got multiple sites, Tesla, VW. The UK's pace just looks very slow in this absolutely fundamental area.
And didn't that big hope, British Volt, collapse?
It did, yeah. That was a major blow in 2023. Tata is building a gigafactory now, which is good news, but it's years away from being fully up and running.
So capacity needs to scale up fast if the UK wants to be a real player, not just buying batteries from elsewhere.
Precisely. It's critical.
And we also had this thing called the ZEV mandate, zero emission vehicle mandate, started in 2024.
Right, the ZEV mandate. It forces manufacturers, basically. They have to ensure 22% of the cars they sell in the UK are zero emission.
And that percentage ramps up each year.
Yep, rising to 100% by 2035.
So that sounds good on paper, a clear target for the industry.
It is, but if we zoom out a bit, that target could easily wobble if people aren't buying the cars.
Because they're too expensive. Or the charging isn't there.
Exactly. If demand stalls because of cost or infrastructure lags behind, that mandate gets very hard to meet. It's all connected. It's a whole ecosystem that needs to work.
Speaking of cost, let's really unpack the affordability issue.
Yeah.
Because EVs are still, well, a lot more expensive up front in the UK.
Substantially more. Often puts them in a luxury bracket for many families.
What's the typical gap?
The average EV costs something like 10,000 to 15,000 pounds more than a similar petrol car. That's a huge chunk of money.
Wow. And what about the used market? That's key for getting tech into more hands.
It's still really immature for EVs. Very few options under, say, 15,000 pounds. Totally different from the petrol secondhand market, which is massive and varied.
So access is still limited. And charging costs. You hear it's cheaper to run an EV.
If you can charge at home, yes, definitely cheaper. But public chargers, they can often cost 2, 3, even 4 times more per kilowatt hour.
Ouch. So for city dwellers, renters, people without driveways,
it wipes out a big chunk of that running cost saving. Makes the whole financial argument much less appealing.
and then there's tax. You mentioned Norway earlier, how they support EVs.
Yeah, Norway is the classic example. No VAT, no road tax on EVs for a long time. That's a huge factor in why their EV market share is, what, over 80%.
Incredible. And the UK?
The UK has actually started taxing EVs from 2025. Road tax applies.
Seriously. So after removing grants, they're adding taxes.
It's another one of those mixed messages, isn't it? It just dampens enthusiasm and makes the sums harder for the average buyer.
That is a truly stark difference compared to somewhere like Norway. Okay, let's zoom out even further. UK production versus the rest of the world.
Yeah, the global picture is quite sobering for the UK.
How so?
Well, China just utterly dominates global EV production. They make something like over 60% of all the EV batteries in the world.
Wow. Companies like BYD, NIO.
XPeng, yeah, giants. Meanwhile, the EU has its own strong players, VW, Renault, Peugeot, and they've invested heavily in building up their own battery supply chains.
So where does that leave the UK?
It risks becoming, well, just an assembly line, not a core player in the technology itself.
Even with JLR going electric and Mini building EVs here.
That's positive, definitely. But often they're relying heavily on batteries made in China or the EU.
Which creates a vulnerability.
A massive one. It's like an Achilles heel for long-term industrial strategy. The UK isn't controlling the core tech, the raw materials. It leaves them exposed to global supply issues and means they're importing the most valuable parts.
Okay, so if we boil it down, the core problems holding the UK back seem to be maybe 4 main things.
That's about right. What's your first?
Charging infrastructure. It's patchy, unreliable, confusing, and just doesn't work well for everyone, especially renters or people outside big cities.
Agreed. Number 2, I'd say, is that policy inconsistency. The moving targets, the mixed signals on grants and taxes. It just creates uncertainty. Manufacturers hate uncertainty.
Third, affordability. That big price gap, the weak used market, the higher public charging costs.
Yeah.
EVs still feel like a luxury item, limiting who can actually buy one.
Yep. And fourth, that lack of domestic manufacturing, especially batteries. Without scaling that up, securing materials, the UK stays vulnerable and imports most of the key components. It misses out on jobs and industrial strength in this huge shift.
It really sounds like the UK is, well, at serious risk of being a follower, not a leader, in this whole global transition.
That's the danger, yes.
But can the tide still turn? Is there hope? What does the future look like?
Look, the global switch to EVs is happening. It's undeniable. It'll happen whether the UK leads or follows. But yeah, things could definitely shift the tide for the UK.
Like what?
Well, simple market forces plus public pressure. As more EVs appear, petrol and diesel car resale values are going to keep falling. That alone will start nudging more people towards electric.
And that ZEV mandate, if the government actually sticks to it firmly,
then car makers have no choice. They have to sell those EVs to hit the targets. That should push them to market them harder, maybe bring prices down, increase the options available.
Okay, makes sense.
And the big one, battery supply. If the UK can genuinely get a couple of reliable, large-scale gigafactories operational, that would be huge. Stabilize local production, help control costs.
And what about new ways of accessing EVs?
Yeah.
Not just buying them outright.
Yeah, things like EV as a service, subscription models, leasing schemes. You see companies like Onto, Zipcar exploring this, even Tesla doing pilot programs.
That could really open things up, right? Especially in cities where maybe you don't need to own a car full-time.
Exactly. It could democratize access, making EVs an option for people who can't afford the big upfront cost or don't have easy home charging.
Okay, so maybe a final bit of perspective for you listening. Let's just quickly compare the UK numbers to a few others. Around 2024 figures. EV market share, UK roughly 17%.
Germany, around 25%. Norway,
Yeah.
way up there, 80% plus. And China, maybe 35% plus.
Public chargers, UK around 60,000.
Germany, over 90,000.
Firm.
Norway, about 25,000, but remember, much smaller population. China, an incredible 2 million plus.
Government purchase incentives, UK, mostly gone.
Germany, up to €4,500. Norway, massive incentives historically. China, a mix of state and local subsidies.
And battery production capacity, UK, low.
Germany, high. Norway, low. China, massive. Just massive.
So the bottom line seems pretty clear. Electric cars aren't the future anymore. They're here now.
Absolutely, they're the present. The UK started with this really bold vision, but the follow-through, it's been inconsistent. And you could say, frankly, under-resourced in key spots.
And the core implication here feels quite stark. If the government doesn't get a real grip on charging, on boosting battery production here, and really tackling that cost barrier.
And Britain risks just being a consumer of clean tech. Not an innovator, not a creator, just buying it in from elsewhere.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to maybe mull over. What does it really mean for a country to be a follower versus a leader in such a massive global tech shift?
Yeah, how might that affect more than just car sales? Think about the wider economy, innovation, jobs, even national standing in the longer run. Something to think about.
Thanks for watching the video.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments below. If there's a specific topic you'd like us to cover next time, do let us know.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. And if you found this one helpful, make sure to share it with others too.
See you in the next video.